to be right here with what is offered. You know, I was just teaching this great Irish proverb that says, Isfar an rud ata, na ra rud avi. Better the thing that is than two things that were. Right here is the good thing. Isfar an rud ata, the thing that is right in front of you. That's the potential. That's the potency and the power and the deliciousness. The two things that were are much less than the one thing that is. And definitely when it comes to creating, it's that fresh energy, isn't it?
When we look at, how powerful the spoken word is and everything that comes together at that moment of inception where the inspired creative artist, whether a singer, a songwriter, someone that is mesmerized by the words, what is your definition, or how do you describe you create from this endless possibility? What would you do?
What would I do? I love to put the antenna up. And it's a full body antenna, isn't it, son? That is perceiving. I call it that poem feeling. And I'm sure you know because you're a poet yourself. But something comes over you in a moment and you think, I cannot resist this. Like, I need to be in it. Something important is happening. And before you know it, you're running to grab your notepad and pen or whatever you write on. And you're in it. You're diving into that feeling, that sensation. You know, I love to remind myself that the filia, which is the word for an Irish poet, and a fili in early Irish, it comes from the Indo-European root ad ki, which is the reflex of chim we have today, which means I see. So the poet is a kind of seer. And it's almost like the ability to recognize that thing is here. Do something, jump right into the pool. Here is your chance. You're receiving a transmission. Go for it. However people understand that transmission from life, from yourself, from your heart, from someone else, from a moment. And then I love to think about it as participation. Let's participate in it. And really what a poem offers me the opportunity, or any of us, I think, is the opportunity to participate in a moment.
Oh, that's a beautiful invitation. It really is. I mean, if I was to attempt to try and define what it is like and I always refer to the present moment as all we have, or close to the future, the past, and everything is culminated into this very essence. And, you just feel this vibratory frequency that comes over you, and you're instantly in that state that can pluck these words out of existence and then cultivate them into something, craft them into a kiss from the universe, as I like to put it.
Oh, I like how you're saying that, son, because I think you're right that the first part of it is the plucking. There's a gift, isn't there, to everyone who creates, whether you're a songwriter or there's something that comes sort of down the chute to you. And then I like your word cultivate, because after that initial reception of some bit of energy or inspiration, it's over to you to stay with it and cultivate it and create with it what is possible. Because you could just receive that, and I have actually, and I'm in this, but I have recognized that there have been times where I've received something and I've thought, oh well, that's not the most original thing, or that's not that important, or the real trick is actually sticking with it, is the cultivating.
It's such an interesting point, and well earned through your own trials and tribulations. But most people, as artists, as technically in theory, everyone's a creator. You start with a mold, and people either overstretch or understretch what the potential is by creating, and then it's like, oh, I need to pick this out. I need to, instead of go with whatever it is right now. And that's a tough one for a lot of people to trust themselves that much.
That is so true. There's, again, that feeling of invitation to be right here with what is offered. I was just teaching this great Irish proverb that says, "Is far an rud atá, na ra rud a bhí." Better the thing that is than two things that were. Right here is the good thing. Is far an rud atá, the thing that is right in front of you. That's the potential. That's the potency and the power and the deliciousness. The two things that were are much less than the one thing that is. And definitely when it comes to creating, it's that fresh energy, isn't it? That is a thrill. I think it's what keeps us. I can tell you and I are both like passionate creators. And I think that's what keeps us feeling that as we go, wow, there's something happening right now. Rather than in the past, this happened and I used to be, and all of that done. This now.
Well, yeah, it really is. I mean, I would have to say that, when the inspiration is very clear, a slap across the face, a divine spark that is fully embodiment, it
Yes.
comes with a stream. And so if I was to define it, it starts with something that would be obscure to the language learnt mind. And then I just paint from it. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, how did you associate the drop of the nectar from to the flame of a candle that enriched the landscape of the universe through the eye of the beholder deep within the well of desire that creates what is your love and passion for the things that you hate within yourself? You drop to the knees of discontent to find it. And, it just comes up.
Just comes up. It just comes up if you will follow the thread like you just did.
And what would you use? Because let's talk more about how humility is definitely your first name and middle name, but you have an incredible background as a creator, a songwriter, a teacher of Celtic practices or history. I think you're very deep into that, and a poet, which you had me at hello. So we fell in love instantaneously with that.
I love that. I love that. I believe, son, it's exciting to me to do everything in my power to stimulate that poetic feeling in other people, because I think there's so much in every single person, worlds and worlds and worlds, mysteries, beauties, strengths, powers that have never seen the light of day. And I see poetry as one way of tapping into that, of people becoming aware. One time I was lucky, I was working with a young blind poet. And the one thing this poet really loved in the world was goats, of all things, goats. And we had been given a grant to work together for, I think, 3 months. And we wrote poems about goats for 3 months, which is the thing I didn't know that we could. Well, we kept going further. I've always said you can write a poem about anything, about the bottle of ketchup. It doesn't have to be a poetic, so-called poetic topic. Goats unfolded for us. And before we knew it, we were in the realm of divine plenty and the goat goddesses. We learned about the goat goddesses who give milk. Hedron is one of them, a Norse goat goddess. We looked at goats and the economy of the world and how fundamental they've been in providing meat and milk and fur. And anyway, off we went. And this young poet wrote a whole chapbook of poems around goats. So that proved to me that anything is possible. After I did that with goats, I thought we can go forever on anything. Well,
it's like that. Yeah, I mean, you feel that build up, that rumbling that is an emotion that's starting to bleed into the aura of the teacher, really. I mean, the poet is sharing these slipstreams of consciousness and putting it into the ether and then sharing it with everyone else, and we're all converging on that. It's so powerful. I mean, you and I are sharing in this communion that we're having, and we're feeling the visceral effects. There's an energy potential that takes place.
Yes.
And we can both feel the elated charge coming off this union. I love moments like this, which is pretty much
Me
my
too.
existence.
Sam, that is a wonderful way to live. That is
Yeah.
a wonderful way to live. You know, the sweetness of life, the honey that is right here. And of course, there's more, you know, because I always want to say for all kinds of poets, sometimes the poem they need to write is a poem of pain, you know, a poem of truth telling about an experience or some kind of hindrance or obstacle. But I think that the more you root around in there, I mean, I've always said the center of life is joy. I know there's a lot of hard things, but I think poetry is a key to that, actually, to accessing that joy. Words, even just words, are a key to accessing that joy. Just the other day, I was with another group of young blind poets, and we wrote 3-word poems. And I said, you know, first, just tell me what's one of your favorite words. And they came back with dance and joy. And one of them said supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, you know, which I thought was wonderful, and she knew how to spell it. And then I said, now listen to everybody else's poems, words, and put 3 of them in an order that you like, any order that you like. And so it could be dance, joy, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. That's a whole poem. You know,
And
it brings you somewhere. You
you
know,
feel
one
it.
of them had yellow horse joy. I was like, do you feel that? And I feel like a visceral,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it's like a world, you know, a world opens from yellow horse joy. That's beautiful.
And it's such a beautiful, intimate invitation to something that's so sacred for that poet. And they're sharing it.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
so beautiful, because that vulnerable state is really where everyone needs to return to, that sentience, that empathy that really is the superpower of the human being. And some
I love
people
that.
get distracted. They get distracted by it.
It's so true, son. I love what you just said about the empathy is the superpower of the human being. I've always said that, you know, so my other life outside of being a poet is being a professor of Irish language and folklore. And out of all these years of studying this, the real nugget I take always is be a human being among human beings. Just
Wow.
be a person. That's what, and it's just another way of saying what you just said beautifully, that empathy is the superpower of the human being, that feeling nature, you know, that openness to each other. And I think sometimes, especially for people who are empathic, and you are, and I am, and I'm sure many of the people watching this are empathic, it can seem risky at times. It can seem like saying you must be open to everything that everyone wants to put in your lap, and you must act upon it in the way they want to. But that isn't what it means at all. You know, it is generally a disposition of openness. I am observing your human experience from the perspective of my human experience. And I'm with you in being a human being.
Yeah, it is. It's something that you want to reach outside, so extreme, so external, that you never realize that everything that you need is right here.
That's the big lesson, isn't it? We have to learn it again and again. A friend and I were just speaking and saying there's so much information now, and it's wonderful. I mean, when I was a kid, we couldn't have imagined what it would be like now that you have a plumbing issue, you can go on YouTube and you can get the answer right away. You know, it's kind of a miracle. We had to go to the library to find those things when we were young, you know, and it's possible to get inundated by teachings and perspectives and ideas. And always the sweetness is coming back to the human scale of yourself and this moment. That's one I learn again and again because I love ideas. I love learning. And my antenna is always up for the new and the interesting and, and wisdom. And yet, like you say, everything that we need really is inside ourselves. Just coming back to that again and again. I think it's a great cure for overwhelm that you've just shared. Right.
Well, oh, absolutely, because it's about this trail of, really discontent, recognizing that their personality is not the stream. It's a subjective experience that can be your absolute, but the stream of truth comes from your embodying the wholeness. And when you do that, all of a sudden, all the subjective viewpoints and the encrypted sort of states of emotional discontent just fade away, and you just fall back into selflessness and servitude to help others.
I love that. I call that the honey stream because you can feel it, right? And cultivating that like openness and relationship to the honey stream, I think is a wonderful practice in life. Just knowing that it's there and that you can edge toward it and that then you're in it. And it's so delicious to sort of forget about all the little petty grievances and all the worries and all the things happening and simply be joined with that joy that is here.
You speak, excuse me, you speak these words of wisdom, and it's so refreshing, and it literally just solidifies a message within a Taoist path that is like literally you're speaking the truth from a Taoist perspective, because it's about this exploration of the divine spark that then turns into inquiry then develops curiosity amply charges contemplation then nurtures what we consider hopium is a superpower for a human being, then it enriches and blossoms into belief, and that's the crossroads where we can be distorted within our own experience because our absolute truth is only met by our own experience. And then you leap over to knowing, and that knowing will eventually expire, and you will reveal wisdom. And wisdom is where all of a sudden you are the truth teller.
Wow, that's quite a path and a process. What I like about it, though, San, and you're teaching me something here that I find really interesting. But what I like about it is that there's a place to leap into it from wherever we are.
Yes.
Right? You can be in a moment of dazzlement and bewilderment, and you can leap in there with curiosity. Or you could be maybe further along the path and already in a place of belief.
And I mean, that's the beauty, is that you can capture that moment. It's like a freeze frame, that if you were to slow everything down, what is happening instantaneously, you have an option to enter into this experience at will or not at all. But that sort of processes give someone some type of path of assembly, that they can make some type of method out of the madness that they experience between their ears as a thought, feeling, and emotion.
Do you think you're teaching me something here that's new to me. I really don't know very much about the Tao, but I'm interested. And do you think that it is a natural knowing within people? Like this is a kind of innate, that following that path is innate to the human being without being taught?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
if I was to refine it to what we refer to as metaphysics of Tao, it gives you a little bit more of an semblance of what that really means for the individual experiencer. Because the rite of passage is when you recognize that through these layers of experience, we're looking at, your attention as being the most valuable commodity within this experience. And so some people might refer to it as a realm, a dimension, but once attention is met with intention, you evoke and reveal your spirit self within the material state. We refer to that. And so now all of a sudden you can craft from the material state things that would be more in line with what we refer to as serendipitous, synchronistic moments, which is in Taoism, Wu Wei. I think it's the honeypot that you're speaking of, which is effortless action, effortless effort. And this is an embodiment of what we refer to as the primordial mother, the Tao. So she is a stream of magnetism that exhibits and reveals your true eternal immortal self so that you can evoke and supercharge the experience, raising the conscious collective within this state. And so that alchemical process becomes more and more enriched as you reveal yourself. And so if we were to do the animation, it starts from the animation of all things, which is the void, the mother, the primordial mother. And she animates consciousness. Consciousness animates the spirit. Spirit animates energy. Energy animates the body, which is the material that we experience, which is a distorted energy potential. So most people don't go past the energy of the body and the material because they're still caught up in their own experience, and it may exhibit pain and suffering. It may be joyful and blissful. But when you're looking for a methodology of cultivation, we have a clear path of being able to actualize yourself. And so for something as simplistic as duality to non-dualist, centric to non-centric, you will find that the symbiotic dance between yin and yang from the stream of perfection, which is the mother, you have the option to enter. If you choose to, your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is enter that center point. And once you do, you recognize you're everything. You're all things and nothing. And so no matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, you see perfection. Everything is perfection. Everything is beauty. Everything is love. And that's what you don't have to fight. But it comes from an alchemical process where if you recognize the energy potential, you can craft from that and regulate that energy that emulates the embodiment of yourself as an eternal, immortal, forever being. And that shows itself. And I think that sort of is a little enriched, and it might lead into some kind of Celtic mysticism if you pursue that at all. There's some level of parallels with this type of seeking. When someone wants to seek their own gnosis, their own self-realization, it has all these magical aspects to it when you get deeper.
Rhymes. Really, we're back to poetry, aren't we?
Yes.
Rhymes, right? The idea of seeking a rhyme in the world. One thing that's really excited me in the last few weeks is there's more discussion than ever about consciousness in the scientific world. And I just saw a video in which a scientist was talking about the possibility that the sun is conscious. And I thought every culture before ours has treated it as such. And I don't know about you, son, but I have a love affair with the sun. Every day I blow it a kiss first thing in the morning. And I feel an answering joy, an answering pleasure in that exchange. So I love the idea that we can enter this stream, that words actually, rhymes, concordances, accordances, all the things that make poetry are also part of us making our souls what they can be. Right? Looking for rhymes in the world, looking for things. That is a rhyme with me. I see it, right? I see it. And I've often thought too that we can use individual words. Like one word I love is affection. I feel like it's a word that's sort of fallen out of use in our culture. But it's such a beautiful word to live with for a day. Just the energy of that one word, to walk with affection through the day. Affection for your house, affection for, whoever you see on the road, whoever you see at work, the trees around you, every little thing. even maybe harder, but the hard things, affection, and the vibration of that word. I mean, in a way, like I've just talked about 3-word poems. I think a 3-word poem is really potent. The where you put those things and how you can arrange them. But I think a single word is also potent and puts
Absolutely.
us right in touch with exactly what I can't wait to watch this again, San, because I want to hear everything that you just said again.
Yeah, it's very much like Pat Benatar's greatest hits. Hit me with your best shot. It does get a little. I tend to get very elate, very excited, and that's a beautiful spark of divinity. I might try and cram a lot of stuff in a few
Oh,
brief moments.
that's not an oblique criticism. I found it exciting, and I found it nourishing, and I want to take it in again. As I
Yeah.
say, you're opening me up to some things that I haven't known, and I like the resonance between what I have felt just myself and what I'm hearing is Taoist tradition and thought and wisdom. That's exciting.
Well, we use it as a craft, as an alchemist. The rite of passage is to be in tune with what we refer to as the rhapsody, which is a deep understanding of the words and how they initiate and if envelop and emanate magic within this material state. And so that is a dance between what we call the rhapsody and the remedy. And this goes back for thousands of years. You will return back to 6000 BC, where the Yellow Emperor, who's one of the teachers that I channel, and that's a whole nother ballgame if you want to get down the channeling path. But that is information. It's a dialogue to a monologue. And what you need to trust more in yourself is understanding that that dialogue is perfect for you. And the more you trust and free fall into that information, it will become more and more valid and more truthful as you continue your relationship. And the dialogue returns to the monologue, which is your source of information. As a poet, we both understand this. As someone seeking more nourishment for the soul, in a belief system, a religion, something, it doesn't matter what it is, you will find it in God, Buddha, Tao, universe, whatever that is, that will anchor itself in your body and start to recognize through the words this visceral, somatic, kinesthetic response that does not need to be explained. Your finite mind, your intellect just takes a back seat and says, all right, you got me, give up. And you're just like, it doesn't matter what just as the beauty of the words that we're just speaking about, as opposed to, 1 word, 3 words, a version of poetry from some creator. It has an imbued state that comes from their heart, and that's why you feel it. And that's why the energy potential is so valuable for a seeker, is to refine and condition yourself so you can experience all these wonderful things as they enter into your view. As you enter into it and it enters into you, you have this blossoming, full body arousal. It's like, hang on, whoa, I can't explain it. When I go into a room and I'm around people that are like-minded, that center me, I am with good company. Or furthermore, you may enter a room and go, you know what? It's a little prickly for me. It's like a caged feral cat. I've got to get out of here. And then
Yes.
you just leave. You just know. You intuitively know. Yeah.
I love that so much. I love that so much. Yes, looking for kujik good company, people to meet you with in that heart space. What a joy. But thinking, I'm fascinated with the dialogue and the monologue. And my own practice for many years was to sit down every Monday and write with spirit. Just ask questions, listen, and write. And when I first started, of course, I went through the whole thing that I think anyone would go through of saying, am I making this up? But what was coming through was so grounding, helpful, relevant, wise, wiser than me, for sure. with answers, actually sometimes quite practical, even with quite practical advice, that I just stopped worrying about, am I making this up? And gave myself over to just asking and waiting and listening. And now I feel like if I hear somebody saying something that comes from, we'll say, God, religious tradition, whatever, that feels out of alignment with that, I recognize it immediately. And often what it is some kind of compulsion or some kind of hierarchy, right? Like you're wrong judgment. Whenever I hear that, I think that does not square at all with my experience of spirit, which is pure love, acceptance, good humor, even help, good company. And yes would be the answer. I want to, even if I said, I want to play hooky and get off work and go out walking in the woods, I would get that's perfect. It's one experience of many that you can have. I would never hear you bad person, or there wouldn't be judgment. There would just be openness to experience. So it's been helpful. I don't do that practice as much because now I feel like I'm able to have that conversation instantly in my heart, mind. But I love that that's part of your tradition.
Yeah, it's like that jaded, shaded node of nonsense that comes in like an overshadowing, a polarizing, and most people listen. In anything that self-harms, self-destructive talk is not coming from anything that would be sacred or holy or nurturing, and that's like the first red flag. Someone could instantly go, okay, if I'm monitoring my own experience, I need to acknowledge that whatever that is not coming from my soul. It's not coming from a higher state of awareness. It's some type of interrupted noise that needs to be ignored. And so, we talk like this, and many people will kind of like not want to surrender and be as open and as soft as that. But I believe that part of my experience from my whole life has been I'll accept everything at face value and I'll try everything once. And then it's like, whoa, hang on a second. What does that even mean? Yet you start to make sense of your own experience when you gather the tools as everything, as I was speaking before, everything is energy potential. And shout out to one of my dear friends, Gary Haskins, and he always says I refer to it as a currency. He's like, it's a current and you see it. And I'm like, right on, Gary, because it is. And that current is exhibiting these potential between that symbiotic dance of yin and yang. It's vibratory, frequential, and holds resonance. And that resonance is when it precedes you. As you cultivate that and you lean into it more and let it nourish you, you become an embodiment of it. And so you can walk into a room, and this is why people gravitate to spiritual leaders, whoever they might be, because you feel that emanated state of source. Just being in their presence, they're transmitting it through their own childlike nature. They're just putting it out there. You're like, this guy's kind of goofy, he's kind of silly, yet he's just emanating this incredible feeling. And you're like, I can't deny this. I just feel high as a kite. I think I want to sit in it. And that's where people travel to places to find more understanding of themselves. And this is within everyone. I've discovered from my own.
So too. Yes. Yeah, that's so gorgeous. I love that. This guy is goofy. I know, a book of poetry that I really love is called The Book of Qualities by J. Ruth Gendler. And she has drawn human qualities and then written a little prose poem about each of them. But she writes about the quality of innocence, that it takes a great deal of sophistication to remain innocent. And that's what your description of that open, childlike, full of wonder, aligned person feels like to me, is innocence. Is like retaining that innocence, living within it, remembering. But also I like remembering that in this world, you do have to do some dancing, I think, to protect those qualities in yourself. You know, there's enough scoffing. There's enough scoffing for a lifetime. If you're not, you know, if you put yourself in those rooms, like you said, prickly people, I think we have to really care for that innocence in ourselves and make space for it and recognize this is not, you know, I've always said to writers, like, if you go to a writing group and you leave and you feel like not writing, please don't go again. Just don't go again. It's just not the place for you, right? It doesn't mean those are bad people or whatever, but it's not going to bring you where you want to go. But if you go to a writing group and you have a million ideas when you walk out, that is the place to be. And I think it's the same for everything. I think it's the same for like feeling alive. If you go among people and you're like, wow, there's possibilities for life I've never even considered, you know, and these people are doing really interesting things. I'm inspired to live more. I'm inspired to open my heart. You're in the right place. But if you go around the prickly people, it doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means not a match, not a rhyme. Protect the innocence, you know, protect that life spark. And the cynicism of our age that is so available at any time. You're a fool, you know. Yes, gladly. I am a fool.
It's like, you know, being, you know, gravitating to the old tale or the myth that love is blind and love is pure and love is whole. I mean, that's just in definition the truth, yet you have to arrive at that place of self-realization through your own experience. And so, you know, subjectively, the universal idea of love is so, you know, scattered. It's so diverted to many different ways of thinking and expressing, where, you know, you end up with, oh, just be in love. And most people will be like, okay, well, for me, that's razor blades and bunny rabbits. And for you, it's rainbows and unicorns. Yet how do we meet at this universal consciousness? And I feel that that's where the alchemy for Taoism really comes in, because you regulate yourself. And so you will arrive at the same place, that is servitude and selflessness does not require your participation. And then people go, oh my goodness. And like most of my students are like, Jifu, my head just exploded. What kind of paradox is that? I'm like, well, it's understanding that those shades of your own self are really just an emanated state of what is currently happening in your experience. Your true nature is pure. It's whole. It always is. It always has. It always will be. That's what we refer to the eternal, immortal, forever self that exists within all of us. And all this other stuff, this wave of information through thoughts, feelings, and emotions are impermanent. They are transitory. They will have a crescendo like a firework, and then they'll fall back into themselves and return like ashes to ashes, dust to dust, return to the earth. Yes. And so will the human being.
It really, that's amazing. And it makes me think, you know, in Irish, you don't say, I am sad. You don't claim it and label yourself. You say sadness, tabron orum. Sadness is on me. Your name is on you. Like the idea about the permanence. What is permanent? And in fact, if we want to say anything exists in Irish, we say something is in it, which I love, because it seems like exactly what we're talking about here. That if something exists, it's in it. I can feel that. So fado vi ri an urwain. Once long ago, there was a king. Literally, long ago, there was a king that was in it. It was his time of being in it. So there's anyway, just to say, in Irish language, there's an allowing of the impermanence of these states that says, no, you aren't sad. You aren't annoyed. You aren't even happy. These things are on you, but the next moment, something else will be on you. Even your name. You're
Oh,
constantly shifting.
that is so powerful, so beautiful. It reminds me of a poetic song from a prophet. Here we are, born to be kings. We are the masters of the universe. The prophet Freddie Mercury. We're
Oh,
taking
love.
princes, right? And so he's really, he was beyond. I mean, that was a spark of divinity. He was so
Oh,
creative. Is and
glorious.
lives on eternally in my heart. And I might have scratched the prince part and put in masters, but or kings. But guess what? That's okay.
I think it's marvelous. I think it's marvelous. I love anything. I call it stand up straight. I love
Mhm.
anything that rouses us to stand up straight, to be a king or a queen or a master or a wizard or divine. Because when you are, my goodness, that's back around to your idea about like being of service without doing anything.
Mm.
When you are that queen walking through the world, just your absolute presence is a gift. Or king, the same. This just like you've stood up straight in yourself. And I think this is me being maybe quite bold, but I think most of us could do with a lot more standing up straight.
Mm.
Going, my goodness, I am made of the stuff that the world is made of. I am divinity in motion right here on planet Earth. I am a queen or a king. Let's see what the world will present to me when I walk out in that energy. That's delicious, I think. Stand up
Oh,
straight inside yourself.
oh, I am. My goodness, I am. You had me at hello. There you go. Amazing, amazing. It really is because any of my students, which will they all watch this, and most people that watch these podcasts or listen to them, it's a visceral, somatic, kinesthetic response that you are having. It's a full body experience because you just captured that beautiful stream, and I experienced it. I'm still experiencing. I'm still emanating this incredible potency, and it's like
Mm.
it's a full body experience. It doesn't leave you. It's so
Yeah.
so so powerful, and that's why I love people being able to recognize their true self. And you, my dear friend, you captured that resonance, and I was like a beacon following. And that's generally how I look for invitation to have these conversations, is follow
Mm.
the stream of resonance. And then you're so enriched with this wisdom and your teaching.
Thank you.
Let's briefly touch on, I know you only have a few minutes left, with the Celtic path of understanding this deeper nature of history. Do you go deeper into the mysticism, or you mentioned wizardry and these types of things? How does that represent itself?
Oh, thank you for asking. So, my real love is folklore of the 19th and early 20th century in Irish. I'm just jazzed by that completely. And some of the best teaching or the richest teaching I love to do is to share about the wise woman and wise man tradition. Banfasa, it means, so the Banfasa is a woman of wisdom. Fios is wisdom. And to be a woman of wisdom or a farfasa, uh, these are people who traditionally were incredible resources to their communities. And you like this, son, because not only were they good at things like herbalism and also, I would say, psychology, right? Listening. They listened to people and they helped them solve problems. They often had information about where was a lost animal. I know where that animal is. We'll go right now. Uh, but also, I think this is amazing. Some people attribute bilocalism to them.
Mm.
That's amazing. There's so many stories where they say the wise woman was at this house and the man set out on horseback to get to wherever and she was there before him.
Yeah.
Pretty fascinating. really. Pretty exciting, again, about potential. And so I teach a class about becoming an Irish wise woman or man. Uh, we look at the folk texts and we talk about how can we embody that today. We also, as a parallel to that, we look at the Cartalk, who is the hag of Irish tradition. And we have the Cartalk is really there in the medieval and early medieval period, probably even before that, but our texts run out then. Really about the 8th century, though, we have texts going forward of the Cartalk, who is meant to be the longest lived person. In fact, there's a folk tradition that she's still there in Ireland today. So I see the Cartalk as kind of the mythic form of that wisdom and that ability to transcend, that ability. She's good with animals. Uh, she gives advice about how to thrive. She has very, very practical advice. In fact, the Cartalk is known that she never eats a bite, but she's hungry. She never stays in bed when she's done sleeping. She takes good care of her feet. I find that really wonderful that she is very careful about the earth that she tracks into the house and making sure she also is careful about the top of her head. So these are mythic things, and the human reflex is the wise woman or the wise man. And there's a million cunning man, and I'm sure you know some of those names. Even the wart man. There's a the man who knows what to do with the warts, which is often something like sympathetic magic. Like you rub them with a certain kind of paper and an herb. You put that paper in a bag and you leave it at the crossroads, and unfortunately, someone picks up the bag. And then your warts are gone, but they get them. But anyway, all of these things, I think, show us what is possible in people, and especially in people who didn't have a lot of power in the world. So I'm looking at Irish culture, which is deeply colonized, and they found their own way of accessing power. So I find that really, really meaningful and inspiring to me. So I love sharing all of that and stories and millions of stories.
Well, we're going to have you on again and go deeper into this because I am fascinated. There's so many parallels because bilocation is more a traditional thing that, I teach people what we call spirit projection Shen, and that is a part of activating your ability to be in all places at once. And so it becomes deep in the cultivation and alchemy, and then you could take it to a more clinical setting where I teach people remote viewing, and I could have my parapsychology friends that they get into understanding how precognition and the availability of taking that quirky, wacky guy that found everything to scare him into a reality where the spooky action of bending reality was too much. It probably took his life, Albert Einstein, and ultimately it was too much. It was like, this is beyond my comprehension.
I hope not, because
Yeah.
he loved imagination, and I think he was very moved by this. I hope he didn't take his life.
No, he didn't take his life, but the perplexed state of recognizing that this cannot be. It's like, I don't have I don't have the ultimate equation that gives me an outcome, a solution to this unbelievable finding. And so he never met it within his lifetime to get to the point where we are now in recognizing this interconnection, or furthermore, what some scientists would refer to as an entanglement. And what's that threshold? Where do we meet that? And that's where bilocating can come in, understanding that you are all things and nothing at the same time. Conceptual to most listening to this right now, it's a little big, too big a pill to swallow. Yet when you start to exhibit these sort of abilities through energy cultivation, it's very tangible, and there's a lot of things that we can.
I think that's thrilling. I just finished up teaching a summer class called the Irish Supernatural. And the first assignment I invite every student to do is collect a supernatural tale from their families, their friends, whatever. Everybody, it doesn't matter, everybody has a supernatural tale. So as much as people will sort of put their foot down and say, oh no, you have to face reality or whatever, as soon as, as they say, like, everybody believes in fairies in the dark, it's true. I think it's exciting. Anyway, I love all of this, San, and I thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I really have enjoyed myself, and I feel like you've opened me up to some new thoughts that I'm excited to return to and cultivate in my poetic garden. So thank you.
Thank you for just being. I'm just so grateful that you have entered back into my life. It depends on whether you believe in incarnation or reincarnation. We're reunited and it feels so good, because
I love
this
that.
is a part of recognizing that we're all part of the same stream. This is another iteration of self. And then you connect with that, in my opinion. That's how I feel. And
Thank you.
it's definitely the beginning of a great friendship, I believe. So thank
I
you.
think so too, San. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to put your interweb and social sphere under this podcast. And I want people to go out and experience all the things that you're sharing in the world. Do you have teachings that people can access online that's not an in-person thing? Or where can people go to find more about you?
Thank you for asking. I think the easiest thing is I have a YouTube channel, and it has a million videos about Irish folklore and tradition, and everyone can go there. I also have a website that has an old-fashioned blog. I like to write to my people. And it also has a whole page of free resources of just go get them, books, take them. And then I also teach through what I call my Celtic Wisdom School. And those are online classes. So there's plenty out there, and love to meet any of your friends. Would be so glad to. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Once again, thank you for the coming in and gracing me with your incredible essence. I mean, it's just been amazing, this conversation.
So
I will
much.
close out with one question. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Oh, that's such a good one.
And that really came from
what? Everything. That's what I'm going to say. Everything. Everything. I thank my car. I thank my printer. I say hello to the yew bush. I've known it since I was a little girl, that there was consciousness all around me. I mean, when I was a little girl, I was just telling a friend the other day that I remember worrying as I looked at a bowl of apples. I was going to choose one, and I didn't want the others to feel bad. That was the early form of that. But I think what I was recognizing was consciousness everywhere. And the quickening of that consciousness is possible. I've always said that when we have pets or children or even each other, we, through our focus and our own quickened consciousness, help to bring. I mean, my pets are like people because they get so, my awareness of their consciousness is so much, and we're dancing together. So yes, I would say everywhere, spiritual consciousness. And maybe also back to Honey Stream.
Oh, yes. I want to explore that more, because that really is. It's so exciting that we can have our own stream of consciousness that returns to the same place. And it's like the potential is unlimited. I mean, I like to remind people, if you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. There's a million ways up the mountain, and we all arrive at the same point at some point.
So delicious. Love it.
Thank you so much for being you. Thank you for coming onto the podcast today and sharing such incredible wisdom. I'm just very grateful. And in closing, I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And
thank you, people, everyone who's been with us. We appreciate you.
Yes.
For the good, the Kujik Tawai, the good company.
I want to explore this Celtic I've got something rumbling in my heart right now that I think has been pointing me in this direction, and you're the wisdom teacher for that. So I'm very excited.
Thank you, son.
Very
Thank
excited.
you very much.
And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.